Hi everyone. So this module will be talking about emerging software and hardware. This is a continuation of our last module, emerging technology and how it affects the world. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the specific software and hardware that has revolutionized all those industries we discussed in module 1. So some of the technology advancements that we have seen obviously have been the internet itself and the bandwidth that we are able to do with high-speed internet and the services that go along with that. Without the internet, we would not have so many apps and smartphones and the connectivity we have today. So they go hand in hand. The way that hardware and software have increased is all based on the technology behind the scenes, like the internet operating systems and other things that allow it to be possible. Technology companies, developers, and manufacturers have moved more towards collaboration as well. You don't see them working in their own little silos anymore. You see them working together to produce a better product for consumers. Increased competition also causes companies to focus on more innovative technologies. So, as the iPhone, for instance, continues to innovate with wireless charging or waterproof capabilities, now you see the Galaxy S10 having where you can share wireless charging between device to device and don't even have to have a charger. So you kind of see how they kind of push one another along. It's always one little nugget that one will have, like with the iPhones, 10 and up, you can do the Face ID and stuff like that, done like your phone. So they're always trying to one up each other, but that causes innovation, which is good for us, but sometimes there's a price tag attached to it. And I know I do not personally like that price tag sometimes. Technology advancements can be subtle upgrades or drastic revisions. Both can be considered emerging technology because usually it has some type of learning curve that we have to stay on top of. Technology continues to advance and converge as well. So what used to take place in multiple devices, now one device can do multiple things, whether it be on the floor of a manufacturing facility and you can do everything from your tablet now through different apps and stuff that the company's developed, or getting your email on your phone. I know it's convenient for me as an instructor to be able to respond to you guys while I'm out and about as well. So just all types of different things. Your cell phone has a camera. Text message, phone calls, email, everything you can do from one device. Most technology advancements come in the form of either software or hardware. Software is usually just a collection of computer programs or related data that provide instructions for telling a computer what to do and how to do it. Hardware is the physical parts or the components of a computer that you can touch, like the RAM, the hard drive, the processor, the monitor, the printer, all that stuff. So hardware, even though it is necessary to innovate and become faster and bigger and better and more shiny, right? They would all be expensive pieces of like an expensive paperweight if the software didn't tell it what to do. The hardware alone doesn't know what to do. It has to have software to run it. These are two sites that you can click on and download from Moodle and the regular PowerPoint. 10 tech trends that will likely be adopted in 2019 is a very interesting read, from drone technology to all types of things in the healthcare industry. And then computers, Computer World's emerging technology site. New topics updated all the time, so you can check those out for yourself. Operating system. So we talked about, with desktop computers and phones and everything, you got Windows 10. I know I use it a lot on all my computers. Windows Server 2019. That is the latest server part. If you're not really an IT person, you probably wouldn't know that, but that's kind of like the back end stuff that companies run servers on. Windows 10 is just the latest one. If you go all the way back to Windows, like NT, Windows 95, Windows 2000, Windows XP. Windows XP was out for like the longest time. Then you got Windows Vista after that, which was kind of a bummer. Then you got Windows 7, which replaced that, which was out for a while, and now you've got Windows 10. Mac OS Mojave is their latest one for desktops and laptops for their operating system. Now, obviously, you've got operating systems for mobile devices now as well, like the iOS for iPhones. There are Windows-based phones as well. And then the last one, Linux. You may have never heard of Linux. It's used on there's tons of different versions of Linux. They're all free, except for Red Hat. They make you pay for some of the security updates. You may have heard of that. They have a headquarters in Raleigh, but they kind of run a lot of servers. They are free though for desktops. If you just don't have an operating system, can't afford one, you can download a version of Linux. It runs very kind of bare bones, meaning it doesn't require a lot of resources usually, but you can do some of the same stuff. Not compatible with a lot still though. But again, it's more for back end stuff. And then actually, out of all of these, you may be surprised to know that Linux is actually the most used operating system out of all of these. Why? Because Android is actually based off of a version of Linux. So running your smartphones, especially in the US and overseas, Linux is the most widely distributed version of an operating system because it controls your smartphone if you've got an Android-based phone. This is kind of what Windows 10 looks like. You may actually use this at home. It went back to the start button and everything that Windows Vista had kind of gotten rid of a little bit. And Windows 10 initially didn't have a start button. So this one, I love Windows 10. Very nice, very easy to use. Windows Server 2019, again, it looks a little similar, but the capabilities of what you're doing is a lot greater. And again, I'll spare you the details of that. If you're a technology major with our department, then you will cover more in depth into that. Mac OS Mojave, this is kind of what it looks like again. Mac doesn't change the look of their operating system very often, more so the capabilities and the apps and functions that you can use within it. But they all kind of look very similar as far as the taskbar down there at the bottom and everything like that. Linux Red Hat, they're up to Enterprise version 8. Again, there's a headquarters in Raleigh, and Red Hat actually just got bought out by a more well-known company, IBM, for a couple $1 billion. So they're doing very well, and it is a very highly respected version of Linux, very secure if you're running like a web server or something like that. Some new software. Microsoft Office 365 is actually moving to 2019. So you may have seen that change on your computer recently as far as the desktop icons are concerned for PowerPoint, Word, and Excel. Google Apps, I love Google Drive, Google Sheets, Google Docs, Google Slides. Now don't get me wrong, I love Microsoft Office as well. Type many a paper, create many a PowerPoints, and I love Microsoft Office's new design feature in PowerPoint where it'll auto rearrange all your stuff for you. But the connectivity and collaboration with Google Docs, Sheets, Slides, and Drive is next to none. I love being able to work with my coworkers, or you may have even worked with a fellow student on a paper, a presentation, or something like that. And I love Google Drive because there's just tons of free storage in there. Ninite, that is a software installer. You can visit that site. Just Google search Ninite, N-I-N-I-T-E. That actually keeps, it's like a repository of mostly used software, and it keeps it up to date for you, and it'll install like many things at one time. Puriform, I love CCleaner. That's one that'll kind of clean all those files on your computer that you get from surfing the internet, like cookies and things like that, to try to track your computer. Partition Manager, PC Decrapifier, I know, funny name, but it's kind of like CCleaner. I think that's what CCleaner stands for, is probably crap cleaner. And then some other ones like Windows Backup and Restore, just all types of different software you can use. And obviously with apps on a smartphone, a tablet, there's tons and millions of apps. This is just kind of a picture of what Ninite looks like, where you can kind of pick your different software and it'll install all of it for you in one fell swoop instead of having to go to many different sites. This is just kind of talking about hardware. On August 30th, 2012, a piece of hardware in the United Airlines data center failed to communicate with other computer equipment, delayed about 580 flights, and shut down the company's website for a span of hours. They lost millions of dollars, and I can guarantee you somebody probably got fired. But it was all a technology problem. It had many technology problems since merging with Continental Airlines. So new standard for USB. So we all use USB, whether we got like a USB charger or some type of input-output device that uses USB to plug into a computer or a charger. Now they're up to USB 3.2. So before we had USB 3.0, you've probably seen it looks a little blue on the inside there. 3.1 could transfer stuff up to 10 gigabits per second. Now it's transferring up to 20 gigabits per second with USB 3.2. It is kind of necessary because, again, the more we use greater forms of technology, the bigger these files get. So you need to transfer stuff faster. It is backwards compatible with USB 3.0 and 3.1 though. It does have a little bit of a new connector and an increased maximum bus power. This is what it looks like. If you haven't seen, if you've got a Nintendo Switch, This looks a lot like the connector on the Nintendo Switch. Again, that's just random fact throwing it out there. But this is the way the end of the connector looks. So it's not as boxy, it's a little rounded, as you notice. And these are kind of some of the standards over time. I tried to put that in there. You had USB 1.0, then you moved to 2.0, then 3.0 and 3.1, then 3.1 Gen 2, and now we're up to 3.2. So you kind of see all the stuff over time. And then, of course, Thunderbolt, that's the one that a lot of Mac computers use as well to transfer stuff very, very fast as well. Solid state drive. So you may have heard of these. Old hard drives have like a little, it looks like a record player, a little disc with a spindle around it. It spins very, very fast. They are kind of subjective to like big magnets, being able to erase them, or even if you hit it too hard or drop it or something, it could just lose all your data. Not with solid state drives, and solid state drives are much, much faster. Contains no moving parts actually, faster data retrieval actually in like 1 millisecond or 2 to 3 milliseconds, it could retrieve your data, where a standard hard drive could not. The only problem is it is a lot more expensive. So, and they've came down in price though, so don't let that deter you. And then they even have hybrid drives, which kind of merge the two together. And this is kind of what they look like on the inside. So like I said, the traditional hard drive almost looks like a little record player, where the solid state drive does not look like that at all. It actually looks like a bunch of little flash memory sticks, and that's kind of how it operates. And then this is just kind of comparing the two here as far as the access times. And you can see there a standard hard drive on the left there, 5.5 to 8 milliseconds, where the solid state drive is like 0.1 milliseconds. So it is drastically faster if you've ever had a computer boot up on a solid state drive versus a regular hard drive. And then you can see down there at the bottom, a backup might take 20 to 24 hours, where a backup on a solid state drive might take 6 hours. So it cuts the time way down. Memristor, this was an interesting kind of an idea that somebody had way back in the day at UC Berkeley, where you would actually be able to change the way we do a capacitor, resistor, inductor. There's a fourth type called a memristor. Now, again, this kind of gets into the details about what's on like electrical component parts. If you're an electrician or work with engineering, you may be familiar with that. But the future, he had an idea that it would be a memristor, which will kind of create a different type of deal where, you know, again, the capacitor, resistor, and inductor are all ways of either stopping or changing or allowing the flow of electricity, where this one, a memristor, would actually safely allow in a constant electric current across the device. But unlike a resistor, it will remember the charge when it lost power. So like right now, for instance, if you are working on a document, your computer turns off by accident, and you didn't save it, you lost it, right? This would actually allow your computer to boot back up almost like a light switch, and it would remember what was going on. So this is kind of what replace the RAM in your computer, and it will retain data through power loss. So again, this has not quite came out yet, but again, and it's even many years later, but if it ever does, it would definitely be a game changer. Data centers. So this is the places where we hold large amounts of data. All big companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, they all have them. More and more companies need their data centers to hold servers that provide web services, data storage, all types of stuff, right? But as they grow, so does their electricity needs, which drains the local power grids, as well as the heat. So if you got a bunch of computers, especially servers, just running all day 24/7, it generates a lot of heat. So you got to use more cooling, which uses more electricity. So a couple companies have gotten creative. eBay actually cools their desert data center with hot water. So safe operating temperatures are between 65 and 80 degrees. So they actually operate their Phoenix data center at 115 degrees Fahrenheit to save power and money, but the water tank outside is about 87 degrees. So they use that warm water to naturally run through their heat exchangers to keep their data center cool without even needing the electricity to cool the water. So I thought that was pretty neat. But different ways people are trying to do that. Virtualization has also helped these companies because you can virtualize this stuff and use less hardware. Google has cooled their Finland data center with frigid water from the Baltic Sea. So again, using a little bit of nature. Many other companies are also following suit and building data center in milder climates that can be effectively cooled even with the outside air, instead of building them in hot temperature places and things like that. So just being more strategic. Virtual reality. Now, when I was a kid, I remember everybody thought that video games were just going to be solely virtual reality, and we'd be walking around in virtual reality all the time. And virtual reality has come into existence, and it's pretty cool. Creates a simulated environment. It replaces you in the user in the experience. Instead of just viewing it in a screen, you're kind of immersed into the 3D world. Some VR headsets work with your computer or preloaded games on a TV or screen, and sometimes you can even do it on your smartphone and put it in the little holder. Video game systems also work with it. So it is pretty cool, but it just kind of depends. I don't personally like it. It makes me dizzy, but so there's all different types of ways from education to entertainment that it's being used. Many virtual reality options on the market today are Oculus Rift, Go, and Quest. HTC Vive, the Samsung VR, Gear VR or Odyssey, Google Cardboard, Lenovo Mirage Solo, and then video game systems like this one here in the picture is Nintendo Labo for the Nintendo Switch. It allows you to create different stuff that you can interact with and creates a VR experience. But the main thing I thought was interesting is the classroom. So I went to a conference and the instructor at a elementary school was teaching like geography and different climates, and they were actually able to use some of the Google Cardboard, and I forget whatever VR system they had, but I think it may have been a Gear, where they load the Mount Everest onto the tablet or the phone, and they put it in the VR system, and students are able to view it, and it really feels like you're climbing Mount Everest for them to really be able to see, or whatever part around the world to visit. And she was joking because the students were like, so immersed that they were, had the headset on, they didn't even realize that they were still in the classroom, and they were like climbing on the desk with the headgear on, the virtual reality gear, while they were supposedly climbing Mount Everest. They were climbing up a chair instead, so it was kind of neat there. But again, it allows you to experience this stuff from the comfort of your own couch. And going with that as well, the video graphics of what we do today, obviously with 4K, 5K, 8K TVs. This is one for computers. This is coined as the fastest and finest single graphics processor unit on the market, or really on the planet. It's around $1,200, so it should be. So just the graphics card in your computer, $1,200. It clocks in at 7 gigabits per second. It supports up to 5K resolution, requires about 600 watts of power by itself. Some computers don't even whole computers don't even use 600 watts of power, so that one's a pretty expensive one. Just kind of as a it's called the GeForce GTX Titan 10. So I would love to buy one if anybody wants to get me a Christmas gift. 4K, 5K, and 8K Ultra HD is the new resolution standards. They are 4 to 5 or 8 times the resolution of 1920 by 1080 or 1080p. And you kind of see the different list of resolutions there. Some of them are even curved to allow the full viewing experience, but it's just called Ultra HD now. And then whether you have 4K, 5K, or 8K, it's just depending on your TV. Now, of course, everything has to be in compliance. So the viewing device, the screen itself, everything, the wire that you got running to it, everything has to support all the standards. So you can't just have one or the other. You can't view a 4K movie on an old CRT TV, right? It's not going to work. And you can't, just because you buy a 4K TV does not mean everything is going to be that much clearer. It's still going to depend on what you're viewing to be produced in Ultra HD. And again, these were kind of laughed at, but so was HD at one point before that became popular. So you never know. This is a washable keyboard. I thought this was interesting. It's about 40 bucks. It's submergible up to 11 inches of water. So I guess if you were like a marine biologist, maybe it would help, or a healthcare physician. I personally do not plan on submerging my keyboard, hopefully, but you must keep the USB cable dry. I did learn that from the video. This is a projectable keyboard. Now, I thought this was pretty space age. It can be used with a desktop or laptop computer or even a smartphone. It's a little, you see a little white box there with the black screen, and it's projecting it out, and they're using it on their iPhone there. Some versions come along with accompanying apps for mobile phone compatibility as well, but you can just type on it on a desk or whatever, a flat surface, and it acts just like a keyboard, but there's not really one there. It's all virtual. 3D printers, these are cool. We have many at Nash Community College, and you can actually use them if you bring a cool idea. But it's used to convert 3D models into, in computer language, into an actual 3D printed thing, object. So it prints it out in layers all the way up. and you can use different colors. It could be glow in the dark, all types of stuff. Popular brands are like MakerBot, XYZ Printing, PrinterBot. They actually printed a 3D printer with a 3D printer. So, that it all takes, and now it can take minutes, hours, or days, depending on how large or small the item, or simple or complex the object. The larger or more detailed, the longer it takes. Some advantages: it can create replicas of existing objects. It can create inexpensive test objects like before you go into full-blown production. And it is actually real-world moving working parts. Thermoplastics can get expensive though. It can take hours or days to render a very complex image, and it may require a steep learning curve to render the models. And then there's a lot of legal issues. So obviously people are always trying to use something for bad. So they try to 3D print like guns or weapons and things like that to get past metal detectors. The good thing is the heat and everything has not quite been worked out to produce weapons like that, because the heat will just melt them. But there's always somebody who's going to try to do something bad with emerging technology and new stuff. But 3D printing is pretty cool in a lot of different ways. It also has allowed people to even 3D print models for, like, maybe if you're a nurse and you're learning in the classroom, but also even in healthcare for actual body parts. So and then green 3D printing. Engineers have converted 3D printers to print plant-based ready landscapes, or artscapes as they call them, in any shape. And then kind of continuing with emerging hardware, IoT. If you've ever heard of this, it's basically adding smart. Anytime you hear the word smart before the name of device, it's probably connected to the internet. So all these different things, from smart light bulbs, smart home security, smart locks, thermostats, the home speakers and assistants like Google Home, Amazon Echo, HomePad, tons of smart products that use the internet to connect your different devices. So you can say, hey Alexa, turn on my lights if you're outside before you get in, or unlock the door, or do it from your smartphone, or whatever it is. Turn the thermostat, change it if you forgot. If you forgot to turn on your alarm system, do it while you're at work or away on vacation. Whatever it is, they are able to control it. Now, everything does need the internet, so that's kind of the one caveat. But again, IoT has definitely changed the game of what we do. I've even seen some healthcare parts of, like, glucose smart readers. So it will monitor your reading, and then it will contact your doctor or even the EMS if you are in near like diabetic shock or anything like that. So there's always a good side to it. Again, there are bad, but hardware and software will continue to emerge based off the internet, based off of competition, and it changes, again, just like in our first one, it changes the way we experience entertainment, education, banking, commerce, financial stuff, the healthcare industry. All types of things are changed by our emerging hardware and software. Now, this is just a drop in the bucket for the amount of hardware and software. And I didn't mention any mobile devices. We will actually have a whole module on mobile devices. So if you're into mobile devices, just stay tuned.